Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss about numeric functions in Oracle. Numeric functions are used to perform the numeric operations on a number input and returns a number as an output. Let's see the various numeric functions available in Oracle. The first one in the list is ABS, which takes a number as an input parameter and returns the absolute value of that number. Let's look at the example of ABS function. Let's find the absolute value of 91. Select it and run this. We will get the value as 91. Now let's write another query and use ABS function for negative number. And if you look at the output, we are still getting positive 91. So in ABS function, whether you pass a positive integer or a negative integer, it will always give you the output as the positive integer. The second we have ceil function, which returns the number greater than or equal to n, where n is a number we pass inside the ceil function. The third function in the list is floor, which returns the number less than or equal to n. Again, n is a number. Let's look at some examples of both the functions, ceil and floor. So here we have ceil function and we have given a value 90.68. Let's run this query and see 0.68 has been rounded off to 1 and the final value we are getting as 91. Let's take another value inside ceil function, which is 45.30. This has rounded off to 46. So whatever the number you are providing as part of ceil function, it gives us the output which is greater than or equal to the number we have passed. Now let's use the same numbers with floor function. So 90.68 will be rounded off to 90. Let's try another value which is 45.30. This will give us the lowest integer, which is 45 in the output. So floor function gives us the smallest or equal to the number which we are passing in the floor function. The fourth numeric function in the list is mod, which returns the remainder of m divided by n. So we need to pass two parameters for this mod function, and it gives us the remainder of m. Let's use mod function and see some examples. So we have a query, select mod of 20, 3 from dual. So when we run this query, we should get the remainder 2 in the output. Here we go. Now let's take another example where we will divide 18 by 3. So this gives us the remainder as 0. Let's use another example, which is mod 7, 4. The remainder will be 3, and that is what we are getting in the output. So that is how we use the mod function. Then next we have power function, which returns the m to the power n, where m is base and n is exponent. So let's calculate the power of some of the numbers. So let's calculate 3 to the power 2. We have got the output as 9, which is 3 to the power 2. Now let's take another example and calculate 4 to the power 3, which is 64. We have got in the output. Then we have round function, which round off the number to the nearest decimal point based on the scale we pass, where m is the number and n is the scale. If we do not pass the scale, which is n, then the number is rounded off to 0 places. Let's look at some of the examples of using round function. Here we have taken a number 15.19642 and we want to round it off up to 2 decimal points. So it has been rounded off to 15.2. Let's take another example with value 15.65, and this time we want to round it off to the 1 decimal point. So 15.65 has been rounded off to 15.7. What if we do not pass the scale in the round function? So this time we have not passed the scale. So now let's run this query without passing the scale. and we have got 16 as an output. Let's take another example. This time we are not passing any scale here, which means it will be rounded off to 0 decimal places. So we have given the number as 50.47. Let's select this query and run it. Here we go. We are getting the output as 50, and it has been rounded off to 0 decimal places, right? So this is how we use the round function. The next function in the list we have trunc. This function returns n truncated to m decimal places. Let's take a look at the sum of examples. Here we are using trunc function on a number 1000.586. So let's run this query. So here we have the result. The number has been truncated to 2 decimal places. Now let's take another example of trunc function. This time we want to truncate the value to only 1 decimal place. And here we have got the output as 50.4. Many of us gets confused between round and trunc functions. So please remember, round function rounds off the value to the nearest decimal point, whereas trunc function truncates the value to the scale we pass as the second parameter. Let's take one number and use both the functions round and trunc and see the differences. So let's use the number 11.529 and round it off to 2 decimal places. Let's see what output we are getting here. So this number 11.529 has been rounded off to 11.53. Whereas if we use the same number with trunc function and truncate it to 2 decimal places, it is giving us the output as 11.52, which is truncated the last decimal value, which is 9. So this is the difference between round and trunc functions. I hope you would have understood this difference. Now let's move on to the next numeric function, which is sine. Sine function returns the sign of the number we pass as an input parameter. It gives 1 for positive numbers, -1 for negative numbers, and 0 for 0. Let's use this sine function to see some examples. So here we have a value which is 90.68. which we are passing inside sine function. Let's see what output we are getting here. So we have got 1 because it is a positive number. Now let's use the sine function and pass the negative value here, and let's see what output we are getting here. So we have got -1 output. Now let's again use the sine function and pass 0 here. If we are passing 0 here, we will get the output as 0. So this is the use of sine function to identify whether a number is a positive number or a negative number, or if it is a 0. Next numeric function in the list we have is SQRT, which stands for square root. It takes an input parameter as number and returns the square root of that number. Let's take a look at the example. Let's calculate the square root of number 9. So we know it is 3 and we have got the output as 3. Now let's calculate the square root of another number 1296. So the square root of 1296 is 36. That is how we use this square root function. The last three functions in the list we have to calculate sine, cosine and tangent of an angle expressed in radians. Let's switch to SQL Developer and see some of the examples of using sine, cos and tan functions. Let's calculate the sine value of angle 30 degree. So we have the sine value for 30 degree angle is 0.5000. Let's take another example to calculate the 90 degree sine value. So the sine value for 90 degree angle is 0.99999, which is almost 1. Now let's use the cos function to find out the cosine value of 30 degree, which is 0.865991. Let's find out the cosine value for 90 degree angle also, which is minus 0.000203. At last, let's find out the tangent value of 30 degree, which is 0.5774 and so on. Let's calculate the tangent value of 90 degree also here, which is minus 4909.825942 and so on. So this is how we calculate sine, cosine, and tangent values of the angles. With this, we have covered almost all the numeric functions are available in Oracle. I hope you have understood the topic. We'll see you in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.